Question, why do you want to be an AR? First of all, it's a great way to get into officiating. If you're not too sure if you want to go all the way in, it's a good way to sort of get your feet wet and have a go. So if you're a player listening in on the call, we've got a few players see here and a few coaches. If you have players in your team that have been sort of on the fence about becoming a match official, ARing is a great way to get your feet wet and have a go at it, and see if it's something that you want to pursue further. Being an AR means that you can take on a lot more responsibility in the match, a lot more than what a touch judge can do. So you are able to adjudicate foul play. We can make some calls at the tackle, offside calls, and forward passes and things like that. A lot more responsibility than just your untrained touch judge. If you are a referee, ARing will definitely help you improve your centre game. It gives you a different viewpoint of the game, and I've personally found it really, really helpful in my centre refereeing to do some ARing. And of course, it's always great to be able to support our fellow referees while they're out in the centre. You can take a little bit of the heat from the sideline. And another great thing about ARing is that you can actually referee up a level or two, where you may not have the skill set to referee in a very high level match, but you can definitely get up there and AR in those matches. And so you still get to be a part of some of these really big, exciting fixtures that are coming through Texas, especially with the MLR. There's great opportunities here in Texas for our referees. Of course, friendship and camaraderie. It's a big one. It's always nice to have a couple of mates on the sideline before and after the match to shoot the stuff with. And of course, a little bit of spending money to take the heat off when you're out there buying your beersies, especially if you like those micro brews. They get expensive. So you get a little bit of spending money, and, with Christmas just around the corner, you can still get a couple of games in, I think, before Christmas. And, buy the old lady a nice present. How do I become an AR? Well, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. USA Rugby now has an online course. I believe it's about $10, and you can find that info at usarugby.org/ref courses. Then you would create a membership on the Who's the Ref, update your calendar, let me know when you're available, get your World Rugby Law app on your iPhone and study Law 19 and Law 22. And then come out to our regional referee meetings, and bam, I'll put you out there as an AR, give you some nice kit. If you need any more info about how to become an AR, or you want to have a go, shoot me an email, info@texasrugbyref.com or sgreen@texasrugbyref.com. Derek, what do you reckon, mate? You got anything to add to that?
Like you said, it's a great opportunity to kind of get a different perspective from the game. I think a lot of us spend, 90%, 95% of our time in the middle. And when you make that switch into kind of the team of three, team of four mode that rugby around the world is starting to go to, it's important that you really have that perspective of what it's like to not be in the middle. And there is a difference, and something, that's stuff we're going to talk about tonight. You're not refereeing the game. You're an assistant. You're there to make everybody look good, and you're part of a team. So we'll get into more of that. I like that, fame and glory and money and all that stuff. That's always good as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, for those of you who don't know Derek is a USA Rugby national panel referee. He was one of the first referees to become a professional or get a professional contract in the Pro Rugby League a couple of years ago. He has had World Rugby appointments at various places around the world, AR'd many test matches, and as you can see in the photo, that's Derek there in his whites, refereeing Canada v the New Zealand Māori team, and that crowd looks pretty awesome. So that's Derek. Lots of experience out there in the centre, lots of experience on the sideline. So we're really, really lucky to have him here to share his knowledge about ARing. First of all, the number one is know your touch laws. Even though you have more responsibilities than a touch judge, that is still one of your main roles as an AR, is adjudicating touch. So you really want to make sure that you're on top of your touch laws. Law 19 covers that fairly well. So pull out your law app and get your Law 19 study on. Also, in goal, another big one for ARs. Law 22 is in goal, so make sure you're strong on your law knowledge, because you don't want to be caught out with law errors. You know, that's just something that's unacceptable, especially at the higher levels. The other thing I would say is that you really want to back yourself in your decision making. So if you've got a big call to make, you've just got to back yourself. It's either yes, I'm going to make the call, or no, I'm not. You back your decision and you go out there, lots of confidence, and sell yourself to the players on the field and also the people behind you. You want to sell yourself like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. This is the correct call. You know, it really helps not only keep the sideline from ripping your head off, but it helps the centre referee too, because you know he needs to have credibility. And if you're humming and hawing on your calls, it sort of affects the centre ref. Communication. We want to make sure that we're communicating clearly with the referee. Talk nice and slow, very deliberate, and you want to give yourself a few seconds to rehearse what you want to say so you can communicate what you need to in a quick, precise manner. You only want to be calling the clear and obvious, nothing 50-50 from the sideline, just clear and obvious. So if the guy in the back row of the grandstand can see it, then that's something we want to call in. If you're the only person on the whole park that saw it, then maybe it's not the best thing to do. And then you want to be able to make sure that you're in the best position possible to get the best picture of what's going on. And we'll look at some clips later on in the webinar about positioning as an AR. But that's another really important role, is to make sure that you're working really hard, high work rate, to get yourself in the best position, to get the best picture, so we can adjudicate what's happening in front of us to the best of our ability. And, again, the last one on the list, of course, is know your touch laws, especially when you're on TV. And now with most of our quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final rugby being televised in some fashion here in Texas, it's really important that we know the laws. Derek, anything to add to that, mate?
No, I like that. I mean, really, it just comes down to that. Like you said, know your laws, know your positioning, and it's not necessarily this is right or wrong. These are kind of stuff that we're going to go over tonight. It's just a matter of best practices and ways to get yourself in the right spot to see the right things. It's one of those, I always say, be where you need to be when you need to see what you need to see. And that's something we'll go over tonight. But, I mean, it's really basic. Know your laws and be in a good position to see it.
As far as referees, the number one thing I can say to referees is, use your ARs. If you've been assigned ARs, you're one of the lucky people. We're really making an effort here in Texas this season to have as many people out there ARing as possible. When the schedule's light, I've been trying to schedule people to AR. So if you're a referee who has ARs coming in, make sure you use them and bring them in so they feel like they're a part of a team. Whether you have comms or whether you are running without a communication system, there's still ways in which a referee can bring them in and make them feel like they're contributing to the match in a positive way, and not just running up and down, putting their flag up here and there. And before the game, it's really important that we give our ARs some clear instructions, give them a good briefing, let them know exactly what you're after. It varies between, from ref to ref. Some people like it to be done one way, some people like it the other. That's life. So make sure you take the time before your match to give them clear instructions, and don't assume that they know what you want from them. So clear instructions and a good briefing before the match is usually all we need. And then I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, but a nice thank you after the match, and thank them for coming out and helping you out. So if you're a referee, that's what we want you to be doing. And from the AR point of view, an assistant referee is a full match official. So, it's a lot of responsibility, definitely a lot more than a touch judge. I mean, we talked about that earlier, but you are a full match official, and, we will be looking at you for foul play calls, making big calls for all sorts of things. So remember that when you're rolling up to the pitch, that, take it serious. You're there to support the centre referee. That's your ultimate goal of the day, is to be in a supportive role and to help the centre referee be ready to contribute to the match. So when there's a breakaway downfield, you get on your horse, you work really hard to get down there so you can contribute by adjudicating the offside line for the referee and things like that. So be tuned into the match and be ready to contribute. And when you do have a chat with the referee, make sure that the information that you're giving to him is relevant to the game and it adds to the match. And what we mean about that, you have a number 11 is slightly offside, and then the ball's passed to the opposite side of the field, and you radio in, hey, 11 green's offside. Really not relevant to the game, has no really real effect on the game, has no benefit for us. So make sure what you give is relevant and it's adding to the match, to the flow of the match, to the openness of the match. When you do talk, keep it simple. Colors, numbers, what you saw. So keep it simple. And again, I think Derek will agree with me here. You've got to know your touch laws, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I'll just say, like, Scott, all the stuff that we're talking about, it takes time. So don't feel discouraged if you go out and AR or have already AR this season or have in the past, and you're not on top of things necessarily with all of those points. It just takes time. I think a lot of us that refed in that pro group, since we AR'd probably more that season than we ever had in our whole lives, we all made mistakes, and it just takes time. How you don't make mistakes is you first have to make them, and so it's the same with refereeing. It just takes time for you to get comfortable in how you see the game and read the game and assist the referee.
Great point. I think just repetition, and it's slightly different than refereeing, isn't it, Derek?
Absolutely.
And
whole different ball game.
Right. Okay. Let's move on. Communication. So when you're an AR, and I think me and Derek can relate to this, is that sometimes you have one of the ARs that just says nothing all game long, like that. There's just silent. So the reason we're there is to communicate and pass on information. And this is one of the times where silence is not golden. It's actually weird and uncomfortable. So if you're out there and you're mic'd up as an AR, speak to the referee every once in a while. It makes them feel less anxious. And if you're under the post making a good old joke and you got comms on, just press your button so all three of you can be part of the joke. So, silence is not golden. Use your downtime and pass on relevant information to that referee. We don't always have to use our comms. We can do this at a line out, but when the game's slowed down a bit, it's a good time to pass on some info that you might have. Make sure you're clear and precise with what you say. Usually the centre referee is going to be under all sorts of pressure during the game. So make sure you're clear. Speak slowly, especially over your communication systems. Make sure it's relevant and the timing is good. No use calling in a forward pass after a couple of rucks or someone's offside and the ball is gone and played away. So make sure the timing's right and the calls are relevant. Consider balance in the game. So if a referee's penalising, one team 5, 6, 7 times in a row, it might be a good idea for you as an AR to say, hey, that's the 4th penalty you've had against Green at the tackle. Or you can let him know that there's some trends going on, that he's having a lot of penalties at the tackle, or there's a lot of high tackles, or, teams are offside. So if you see some trends building, that's great information to pass on as well. And of course, it has to be clear and obvious. We don't want to be the only people that know something's happened. And, if you are going to make the call, again, back yourself and, keep it simple. Derek, you want to add to the communication side?
Yeah, I think, a lot of that comes on with the speak slowly, clear and precise. Sometimes during the heat of the moment during a game, you get something out quick, and that might make sense to you in that moment. But put yourself in that referee's shoes. Does that, when they're running at full speed or paying attention to the breakdown, are they really going to know what the heck you're talking about? So that's where we talk about kind of slang terms and how those can be kind of conflicting and unclear. Something that you might hear in games that you see on television or whatever, that might apply to those referees, but maybe not on the day for you. So it's just a matter of keeping it clear and concise. And remember, when you're using those radios, navigating the button, or if it's an ear tech or whatever, you guys are on the Ref Audio Pro. But remember, those sometimes those do have a delay. So a lot of times you'll see something happen, and you'll start to speak as you hit the button, and the referee maybe hears like half of that, and that can also be confusing. So basically just keep it simple really is kind of the number one rule in that.
I've got a question here from Dave Yeoman down in Houston, Texas. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a long H. It's a Houston, Texas. And he's asking, how can he improve his communication with the center referee? As he says, he's given called into the center referee on many occasions that players are offside at a quick tap, and he's never had a center referee even hear it or acknowledge his input. So I think what we have to consider when we're giving information into the center referee is that ultimately, even if you are in the role of an assistant referee, ultimately it's up to the guy or the girl in the center to make the call, to take your information, process it, and decide whether they think it's appropriate to act on your information. One thing that you might want to consider as an AR is that not to give up and don't stop communicating because at one stage the referee didn't take your recommendation. So there's many times in a game when I've worked with Derek where he may be the center referee or I may be the center referee, where he's given me information and I've decided not to use it for whatever reason, because I didn't think I needed to use it. I've definitely given Derek calls before as his assistant referee, and he's decided not to use it. Now, what's important is that I don't clam up and then for the rest of the game decide, oh, you know what, he ignored me, so I'm not going to give it to him any more information. That doesn't really help anyone in the long term. So, sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't, and that's sort of just part of the role. Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a matter of don't take it personal, continue to do your job, even if there's like an incident that happens where you see it and then play's got to carry on, you still need to continue your duty as an AR, because it's a long game, and like you said, we're working as a team. It's really not a time to be getting into little personal fits or anything like that. I mean, it does happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes the referee might have that different perspective and or might think it's immaterial. If a guy is clearly offside, but one team breaks the game line and play carries on, then he might not have an issue with it, or he might not want to penalize a certain team at a certain point or think it's relevant. So it's just a matter, nothing wrong with making that call. And later on after the game, you can chat with that ref about it and, go through the process of his thinking and hopefully get a better insight between the two of you. But you got to carry on.
I know that when me and Derek were down doing the pro rugby, after the matches, we would do our reviews, and not only was the referee being evaluated on their performance, but also the assistant referee was. So we learned to look, if we saw something that we thought was relevant to the game and that we thought that the referee should use, we would give it to them. At the end of the day, if I gave the centre referee information that was wrong and he acted on it, then I had to own that in my review. And vice versa, if I gave information to the centre referee and he ignored it, and in review it turned out that I was correct, then that centre referee has to own that mistake. So, there's a little bit of ownership that goes on there. And I think it takes a little bit of time to actually build some trust with the team of three. If you chuck a group of three strangers or relative strangers together, it's not always going to gel the first time, but hopefully over a season or over a couple of seasons, especially now that we're assigning more ARs, I think we can really start helping each other officiate a better game. So
yeah, I would say in terms of where you want to be as an AR, do you want to give too much information, or do you want to give not enough? I can't necessarily say it's a firm 100% answer, but I as a referee would probably prefer to hear more from an AR than less. Like you said, silence is not golden.
yeah,
It's not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes a couple of us have used the phrase to our ARs. We call it airport security. So if you see something, say something. I think higher level referees are okay with that because they can use their own judgment to take that information and process it. Sometimes maybe a less experienced referee might just lean on his ARs and hear something over the radio and just automatically react and make a call. But like you said, it does take time. So within that, it's kind of within that pendulum swing. Sometimes you might find yourself talking too much, and then the next game you'll talk too little, and then you kind of go back and forth until you really figure out where you fit into that team of three style of communication.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Yeah, I agree with that. Look, we've got a couple more questions coming in. Rod, I'm not too sure if you're up in Oklahoma at the moment or down in Houston. I've asked my ARs to come out onto the pitch if it was significant or material. Is that okay? Yeah, I think, the good thing about having a team of three is that you have the opportunity to ask some questions and get their support. So if there's a big call, especially if it's around foul play or a try being scored, it's a great opportunity, I think, to bring your AR in and have a quick chat. And whether you're actually talking about the incident or just talking about what you're going to do after the match, it's a great way to give yourself a bit of a breather, and so you can maybe think a bit more about what you're going to say to the captain or the player, or about how you're going to communicate your decision to the team. So yeah, I have no issues with it. I think the only point I would make about that is it's easy to come off like you're asking the AR to make the big decisions for you and that you're not really in control. So there's definitely a balance there. But for the big calls, why not take some time? If you've got ARs there, bring them onto the field and make sure we get the calls right and ask for their opinion. And we have Doug's down there in the Woodlands. Communication is key between the team of three. I've had a centre guy say, thanks for the call, we'll play on. Great point again, Doug. That's a great way. If you are the referee and you're mic'd up, it's always good to acknowledge the call in some fashion if you can, and whether you take the call or not, but just simply saying thanks, yeah, I've got it, or I've heard you, can alleviate some of the anxiety from the sideline. Because sometimes when you're an AR and you're calling stuff in and the referee's saying nothing, you're like, are my comms working? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And that in itself can be frustrating. So yeah, just a simple, yeah, I've got you, thanks, we'll play on is a perfect way to deal with that, and let that guy or girl or whoever's on the sideline know that you've heard them, and life's good. Glenn, what have we got here? What signals have you used during matches between centre and AR without headsets, when headsets aren't available? Good question, Glenn, and that's very common. In Texas, we do have communication systems. We have the Ref Audio Pro, but not enough, obviously, for all our games. So Derek, what would you say are some good ways to be able to communicate, or some tips about communicating without headsets?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, probably eye contact is going to be a big factor in that. You gotta, if you're not mic'd up, you can't hear them. You gotta have some sort of visual communication within each other. As the ref, you gotta look at your ARs. Each ref will kind of be different. Sometimes little hand signals for like knock-ons and whatnot can work when you kind of get near the sidelines. I mean, if it plays in the middle of the field, it's going to be unlikely that you're going to be able to look to someone who's 30 meters away to help you with the decision. That needs to be instantaneous. But sometimes, I like to tell the guys or the ARs to keep it simple. Little small signals. Sometimes in terms of, we'll talk about later how we want ARs to help us with offside, but I use a kind of a thing where if players are offside and ARs are in a position to make that call, if I look down the line and I thought someone was offside, I ask that the ARs, if they think it's offside, that they would put their arm out just for a split second, in a way where you, like the referee would be playing advantage, just real quick, maybe 1 second. If I don't look, put it down, and then we move on. But each referee is going to kind of have their own style and how they do that. But the key thing is eye contact, keeping things subtle. You don't want big crazy movements or anything like that. But it's definitely a challenge. You know, we're used to that around the country. Nowadays, we're getting a lot more radios involved, but it's just something each referee is going to have to come up with themselves when they run into that situation. But like I said, eye contact and just communicating as a team without radios is the definite challenge.
I'll just add to that. I think pre-game is when I would sit down with my ARs and say, hey, look, we don't have comms. It's really important for me when I'm in the center that I try to include my ARs in the game as much as possible. Sometimes I fail miserably, but I try to. But I think what it is, if you say to your ARs, hey, look, if I think that there's been a forward pass or a knock on that I may have missed, I'm going to look at you. So if you see a forward pass or a knock on, look at me. And we should make, as Derek said, there'll be some sort of eye contact,
or you might say their name or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Just a subtle signal for the centre ref that you may have agreed upon beforehand is fine. What we don't want to do, and it happened to me. Now it's quite funny, but at the time the team was not amused at all. I thought I was running upfield. I thought the pass was fine, and my AR actually yelled out forward pass so loud that one team actually completely stopped running. You know, I was like, no, I'm happy with it. So I carried on playing, and the team went and scored a try. So it's just about being subtle and pre-match, come up with a game plan so you can feel like you're included. Now, without radios, what I would say is that your ultimate goal is to be a super duper supercharged touch judge. If we have any more questions about the communication, type them in, and we're going to move on a little bit now we'll hit some positioning stuff, to give some people an idea of how ARs should be positioning themselves and some of their running lines. Here's some stuff that we do with comms. So, open play. You want to tell the referee that a player's offside. What we have been doing now at the national level is we're using the color of the team that's infringing. So sometimes, as Derek said earlier, when you hit your button on the comms, the first few words that you say aren't heard by the referee, either because it's a poor connection, or he's under pressure, or they're under pressure. So what we do now, and this is taken directly from the Premiership Rugby, is it's blue, blue, blue. The referee will acknowledge, and then you can give him the rest of the information. So in this scenario, it would be blue, 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 offside, blue 3, offside. And then the referee's got all the information he needs to then either play advantage or straight away penalise blue 3, or if he thinks it's non-material, he can play on. But that's a really good way to clear, simple communication to your centre referee in open play. When we look at set piece, the same type of process, and this could be at a line out, it could be at a scrum, it could be at a restart, where again we're going to use the colour of the team that's infringing, and we'll repeat it 3 times. Red, red, red. Red 1, collapsing the scrum, or whatever the scenario is that's happening. Really, again, a real effective, simple way to get all your message across to the centre referee. And then in downtime, that's when we want to talk about trends and balance in the game. We could say, that's 3 penalties against blue at the tackle, or whatever information that we have that we want to pass on in downtime. If there's a water break or there's an injury break, it's a great time to talk to the referee. Definitely not when they're setting the scrum or under pressure. We don't want to be giving them too much. Derek was over in England not long ago at a Premiership game. He was involved with the officiating crew there. Can you add to this communication style that they use over in the Premiership Rugby, Derek?
Kind of the stuff that we talked about, simple, clear. I think they've kind of worked out a set of terms within their group that they want to go on. At that level, for those of you that watch the Viva Premiership, all three, the team of three, including the TMO, everyone is heard by broadcasts most of the games. So especially when you're over broadcast, it can't sound like some jumbled nonsense.
Yeah.
So it really is, within that team of coming up with common terms that you want to work with before the game, the week leading up to the game. The national group is pretty good at kind of wanting the same thing right now. So most of the guys and women that AR and referee together kind of have a general idea. But for them at the Premiership level, I mean, these guys are some of them are full-time ARs, and that's all they do is just AR every weekend. So you can imagine the experience that those guys have at this point.
If you're interested in becoming an AR, I know there's some referees on this webinar tonight that have expressed interest in ARing in the MLR League when that kicks off. The Premiership rugby that we get here that we can watch on, I think it's NBC broadcast, fantastic learning footage. As Derek said, the team of three are all mic'd up to broadcast, and you can hear so much of how they communicate in their style. And we have some clips here to show you tonight about how they communicate. And I think they do it the best in the rugby world at the moment, the way they deal with their team of three and how they communicate, the language they use, the fact that they have these highly experienced older ARs. It's a great way to stay in the game where you may not have the physical ability anymore to run around on the pitch, but running up and down in a straight line, maybe that you can still do that for another 5, 6, 7 odd years. So great. Let's move on. Clear and obvious. I mean, that's what rugby's all about, rugby officiating. We want to make sure it's clear, it's obvious to everyone, there's no confusion around what we're calling or why we're calling it. Having this sort of philosophy for your officiating really simplifies the game for you, really simplifies it. You don't have to be so technical, clear and obvious. So here's a video clip of what I would consider clear and obvious. So yeah, pretty clear. What do you say? I think that's pretty clear. Forward pass. Have you got good video connection there? Here's another one, clear and obvious.
Okay, for the biggest howler off the edge, but this out.
Oh, he's got for the trick kick, Tony Walker. Now this has been batted back infield. Surely he was out when that occurred. The touchdown was missed there. Probably a metre over the sideline. Hello. And the thing is, when you have a look at that, that's a shocker. He's running out of the tunnel.
I mean, I'm not 100% on the laws of rugby league, but has to be touched, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you called that out, I don't think there'd be anyone in the stadium that would beer cans at you. However,
again, not exactly confident in my rugby league laws, but yeah, that's.
Yeah. I think what I like about that clip is that referee, the AR, he sold it. Like he was.
Is that for real? Is that clip for real? That's a joke, right?
So I thought that was pretty.
Wow.
Good. So that's, to me, we're talking clear and obvious. There's some really good examples of things that are clear and obvious. So it's I thought that was funny clips.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we back here? Sorry. This clip is from the ARC, and it was the first time me and Derek are both on the running as assistant referees here with Chris Asmus in the centre. And before the match, talking about communication, before the match, Chris had talked to me and Derek about if there is a 50-50 call with the new touch law, that he would come up and ask us if the ball would cross the plane of touch, because the new touch law is basically where the ball was in relationship to the touch line, and this was when they were trialling it. So we had this discussion before the match. So this is a great clip about communication before the match and only calling the clear and obvious.
The option to put it downfield. One stop, right kick of base, but Fowler's down here. It's should be out because it's playing the floor variations. And we've like the referee today. Do law variations. If you're in touch with 1 foot, it's going to be the other team. They're giving it to the United States. Sorry, did the ball cross the plane first? The ball crossed the plane, okay. They're going to give it to the United States. I said the same thing to them. Please go in the lineup. It's a good break for the Eagles. Just wait. Needs to get it straight. Looks like he was in touch.
So there we have a call that's 50-50 depending on what team you play for, but just a good example of like, hey, if you're not clear, if it's not clear and obvious, you just got to make a call and do your best to sell it to the people behind you and the people in front of you. Hey, Derek?
Yep. I mean, no reason why you shouldn't be in a position in that play, where you're right down the line. So, I mean, you're in a good position to make that call. So who can argue against it?
Yeah, exactly. And here's another one.
Other than a camera, but
yeah. Here's another call that I had to make in the Red River D1 finals, and hotly contested call, depending on what team you play for. Long grass, and the number 14 moved in and out of touch several times before he caught the ball. So watch this clip, and again, it's a good example of clear and obvious, and just either making a call or not making a call. So yeah, what do you think of that one?
Ooh.
Close. So for me, I was
little choppy video. I think it kind of skipped over that.
I'll play it again, but basically it's such a marginal call there. I was in no real position to make a call either way.
Yeah.
And so for me, because it wasn't clear and obvious, it's a play on.
Yeah. I mean, even just looking at this picture right here, are both of his feet on the ground, and are they in touch? It'd be one of those. I think whatever decision on field was made based off of this replay, if we were in a TMO situation, it'd be very difficult to overturn whichever call was made.
Yeah, I think again, if you use the mantra of clear and obvious, no guessing. We don't want to guess and go, well, he may have been out, he may have been in. We don't want to be doing that. So it's probably better to not make a call and be wrong than to make a call and be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when we I've AR'd, I don't know how many years at the Vegas Sevens, but every time we do the AR meeting with World Rugby's management, it's always, I would rather you miss something than call something that didn't happen.
Sure,
so
for sure.
I would say for the group to remember that we're okay with missing things. We do make mistakes, but it's a lot harder to go to a coach of a team or players and tell them that something happened when it didn't. You know what I mean? So something to keep in mind. Yeah.
It's a great point. Now, I just got Greg Barnell was my other AR in this match. He was the other AR on the far side. He just told me that, he could see it clearly, and he was calling touch. So,
Well, Greg's got better vision than all of us. So,
he's a fantastic
I
AR.
can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. Yeah.
Good call.
He's got that low center gravity, so it gives him a good perspective.
Here's another example of inserting yourself as a match official where you don't need to. So there, I mean, hopefully you guys can see the footage clear enough. I'll rewind it again, play it one more time just in case. A bit choppy. But yeah, he inserted himself there where I don't really think it was necessary. And even the TMO said, hey, look, it's fine. And he decided to call it. Derek, if you're the centre referee and I'm an AR calling that in as a forward pass, what's our conversation going to be like after the video review?
Not good.
Yeah, not clear and obvious.
Yeah, keep that in mind when this happens live. If you're an AR, a lot of times people get on the comms. They'll be calling that in. I mean, this is a TMO review, so when that situation happens live, you're hitting the button and communicating that to the ref. Things we talk about. Don't stop. It's never good to come to a complete stop in that situation when you're running. Because in that situation, if the referee is okay with it, he might say play on. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago when I was in New York doing a game with AR called forward, and I quickly said no, keep running. It looks a little. It's tough when you get on video review and all that, and we get real particular about where the ball was passed and where it was caught and all that stuff. But when this happens live, you're going to have a lot more buy-in from the crowd that the referees are on top of it and didn't think it was forward, even if you communicate forward pass, if the AR doesn't stop. When the AR comes to a complete stop, I hate to use the term, but you basically sell the referee out. And it's really tough to go back from that. So, yeah. I mean, It could be a situation where you go all the way down, award the try or call time, and then have a discussion with your AR. And then you say, no, I thought it was backwards out of the hands or something like that. But if the AR just goes full complete, no, that's forward pass, he kills it right there, and you have no chance to go back if you're wrong, you know what I mean? Or to continue to play on if you're wrong. So something to keep in mind in a situation like that.
What you'll find also in our games locally, when there's only a few people on the sideline, subs, that they're going to call everything their way.
Yeah.
They're going to see it their way. Everything's a forward pass, when it's against them. Everything's a knock on. Everything's
offside.
So it's really important that we don't react to the sideline. And as Derek said, you just keep on running. If it's not completely clear and obvious that it was forward, then it's play on. I think that's a good way to look at it. Okay, AR positioning, the lead and the trail. Derek, do you just want to go over this real quickly, give the referees on the webinar a brief explanation of what we mean by lead and trail?
I mean, basically, if you split the field in two or vertically, if play's coming to you, your thought is the lead AR. If play is moving away from you, then you're the trail AR. And so it's a matter of basically just running up and down. Sometimes you might go from a lead position, and then even though play is going forward, you might be running backwards to get in a trail position. And you kind of, that trail AR is really kind of just watching everything behind play, behind the referee's back. Are the passes, are the passers being hit late? Is anything going on off the ball? And that lead AR is really kind of up with the action, the immediate action that the referee is also looking at. I mean, you're not necessarily looking at the same thing. You're not looking at tackles and breakdowns necessarily, but you're kind of leading with him and watching for anything in that immediate area outside of the ball or even around the ball carrier that the referee might miss.
Perfect. We will go over and do some practical stuff around lead and trail at our meetings. So AR positioning at the tackle. When we have a tackle, a breakdown or a ruck occurs, we're looking for our ARs to be at the last foot of the defensive line. This picture here is a great picture of both referees getting into a good position at the tackle. And this is sort of like the starting point of our positioning. Just have a quick look here, just loops around a bit. And on the far side, you can see that the AR is starting to work to get ball in line. So as soon as it comes out, he's working hard. He's up with the D, ball in line, so he can help adjudicate if need be. The AR on the bottom of our picture, though he's not looking at the tackle situation or the ruck there, that's sort of their responsibility to be watching the players get up from the tackle and then watching the player who's just passed the ball. So we have the AR on the far side. He's helping with forward passes and knock-ons and things like that, maybe watching some of the tackles. The AR down the bottom of the screen is looking at the breakdown, making sure players are getting up, and then watching the player that's just passed the ball so we can adjudicate whether there's been a late tackle or any sort of foul play going on behind the referee's back. Because, I mean, basically that's what you are as an AR. You are the eyes in the back of the referee's head. Here's a good little animation here. So last foot, we've got the breakdown. Breakdown there. So when the ball's about to move away from the tackle, the far side AR is going to work hard to get ball in line as the ball comes out. Yeah, so the ball's going to start coming out. He's going to work hard to get ball in line. The short side AR is going to be watching the breakdown as the ball moves away. Pretty straightforward, and we continue to work hard to stay ball in line as it's being sort of passed through the back line. The AR on our left-hand side is now watching the players who've just passed the ball to make sure there's no foul play. Then we have a breakdown, and then the process starts again. As the ball comes out, our green AR is going to be working hard to get ball in line, while our red AR is going to be watching the breakdown. And then they both work hard, following the ball up the field, watching for the tackles, to make sure there isn't anything like a tip tackle or any foul play. And of course, if there's foul play, we're going to put our flag out. That's the basic idea of how we're going to flow from breakdown to breakdown, and how, depending on what side of the field you are, the ball's coming towards you, you're going to lead a bit. If the ball's going away from you, you're going to watch the referee's back. And here's some clips out of the Premiership. Just watch the ARs in this clip and watch their constant movement and their work rate. You can see the AR on our short side here working hard to get ball in line, and then you'll see the far side AR hopefully coming up to get ball in line again. There he goes. Constant movement back and forth, sort of like a yo-yo. It really gives a lot of credibility to the team of three when they're moving like that, and they can be in line, especially if you have to call a forward pass or offside, which we'll talk about now.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, Derek, with that positioning at the breakdown? Pretty simple?
I mean, yeah, pretty simple. Once you get the hang of it, keep in mind it's a lot more work than what some people might be used to as AR. You know, we introduced this last year to our group in that pro league, and it was a lot of work, but it really gets you more involved in terms of offside. You know, you really should have a handle on offside if you're a full proper team of three. But like I said, it is a lot more effort than normal, but it just kind of, and a lot of it is a way of just keeping more mentally clicked on throughout the full 80 minutes by continuing that process of like, okay, get to the gain line, get back, get to the gain line, get back. It really runs. I mean, I like it. Since we switched over, I really like it.
Yeah, it's definitely quite fatiguing, both mentally and physically. If you do the job well, you definitely cover quite a lot of ground there. So, okay, offsides. We'll talk a little bit about calling and communicating offsides to the referee and how best to handle that. So here's another little animation. So we've got basically open play. We go up, we have a breakdown, and that's your classic, you know, everyone's on side, and our two ARs are up there at the last foot, looking sharp, looking good. There's a couple of things that we want to talk about. Line speed call. So if as an AR, everyone's at the last foot and onside, and someone comes up too quick or anticipates and comes up early, like this situation here, that call is a call that we want the referee to make. It's not something that we're looking for our ARs to make, based on the fact that when we review footage of ARs making these line speed calls, most of the time they're incorrect. And that's just not in the US, but that's, you know, all across the rugby playing nation. So it's now a fairly common protocol that if we start at this situation and everyone's on side and it's a timing issue, that's going to be your centre referee's call. As the ball goes away, that's up to the centre referee to decide whether he wants to call that offside or not. Now, the caveat to that is if the referee is obviously looking the opposite way and he's not seeing it and it's so clear and obvious, that's when you want to give the referee some information. But generally speaking, coming up a little bit early, that's going to be your referee call.
And you might, in that situation, you might get from the referee, are we happy with that timing? Or if one of those plays where he is looking away, like you might get a question from the ref on that. But the reason why we prefer to leave those calls to the referees as an AR, sometimes it's hard to see exactly when that ball was out.
For sure.
So you might think the line is set and the ball is still in, but in reality, the scrum half has hands on and has moved it. So from your perspective, you might think he's offside. So I think that's kind of why we want you to kind of bottle that if anyone is kind of curious why that necessarily is.
And also you on a regulation pitch, we're talking that could be 30, 40 meters away. So give it to the referee and, you know, they can own that call. Here's another example of when we want our referee or our ARs, assistant referees, to make the call. So here we have open play, and as everyone's going back to the breakdown to the last foot, there's clearly two players in this scenario that have not gone back to the last foot. So this is in a situation where we have players who have not reached the back foot. Okay, they've never got back to the onside. That's a great call for the AR to put into the centre referee. And in this case, it would be a simple orange, offside, you know, orange 3 or orange 6, or whatever the number is, if you can see it. But that's the call that we would be looking for as a centre referee, is when those players from open play to a tackle never got back to the last foot. And if the ARs are working hard and getting back to that last foot, it's a very easy thing for them to see. It's easy to have credibility in that call, especially when you've got a crowd behind you watching. Everyone can see it. So that's the type of offside call we would be looking for as a centre referee. In this situation, we have players coming up to the last foot. Then we have someone, you know, it happens all the time when you get the winger sort of comes up a little bit early and maybe that winger never got back to the last foot. And a lot of ARs would call that in before thinking about or waiting for the next phase to happen, where in this scenario, it's a crash type ball. The winger or even the outside centre doesn't really have a material impact on the game. When we talk about, is it relevant? Does it add to the match? Your call. This is a situation where maybe you would bottle that up, Derek, you think?
Yeah. You know, we use the term let it breathe a lot in the game, and that's a perfect example of that. You know, you want to, yes, he was offside or never onside, however you want to put it, but is that going to be material? You know, is it okay to wait another second to see if it's really going to be material? Because a lot of times it might not be that big of a deal. So something to think about when you're in those situations.
And Mark is from Dallas has asked, can we just tell the winger to move back? Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. You can ask the winger to move back, or if you have situations where, let's say, the 13's always a little bit in front of the last foot, at the next line out or stoppage, you can tell the referee, if you've got comms, or at a line out, you can just talk to him, wave him over and say, hey, you know, have a word to 13 and tell him just to make an effort to get back on side. We don't really want ARs yelling in across the field as a general sort of policy. We don't encourage that. But if the person's right next to you, very close, and you can, you know, calmly and nicely say, hey, can you take a step for me, please? you know, I'm all for that, because that's part of the old management. So here is a video clip out of the Pro, and this is a great example of what we just talked about, where there's no audio in this clip, but this is called in by the AR, and this is why we don't do it anymore. So there you can see the AR isn't calling in. He's saying that 4 red is offside, and I play advantage for that. And I think that eventually there's a turnover and I come back for a penalty. And now, when we watch this clip live, it certainly seems like 4's, you know, may have come up early. You know, there, and you can see why the AR called it in. But being 30, 40 meters away, when you actually look at the clip, right there where I freeze it, that ball is actually up off the ground, and Charlie's actually playing that ball away right there. This guy, number 7's offside. The open side here, to call anyone in the open side off to be, you know, offside would be marginal and not really that clear and obvious. So it's one of those things where I think the AR saw that I was looking inward and was trying to have my back, but made an incorrect call. So,
you know, and I think based off of the play, you know, if right here when the 10, I think that's the 10 who gets it immediately. You know, when the 10 has it, and then they swing it wide to, is that Nguyen?
Yeah.
I mean, how much effect does that number 4 really have? You know, they got the block set up here. So, like, if those, you know, if that's a play where that goes to those short 2 forwards, where it's a, you know, a crash ball or something like that, and they're tackled 3 meters behind the gain line, and it results in like a turnover ball in that breakdown, sure. You know, you might want to have AR assistance there, but 9 times out of 10, this is where we want you to bottle it. And, you know, this just saves you, because you come back to the penalty and people are like, who was offside?
Yeah.
Number 4? What did number 4 do?
If I remember correctly, the number 4 really had a go at me about it. He was really upset about that call.
Yeah.
You know, because he was like, I was never offside. If the AR had just waited 2 seconds, so if he had not called that in until the pass had gone to number 10, he would have realised, being a very talented referee and experienced referee, that it never needed to be made. So that's a good example of why we say leave that up to the centre referee to call. If he misses it, he has to die on the sword at the end of the day. So it's better to not call it and have it be wrong than call it and incorrectly penalise a player, because you lose a lot of credibility.
Yeah.
And it can make for a long day. So line outs. Let's have a quick look at positioning at line out. Pretty straightforward. Again, it's really about the far side AR, which is the red AR in this scenario. It's just about work rate here and working hard to get to ball in line so you can add something to the game and be there, contribute, really. So as the line out takes place, the red AR is going to stay with his players at the 10-meter line. And as the line out's over, he's really busting to stay up with the players and get to the ball in line so he can contribute. And the job of the weak side AR is basically to follow the play and have the back of the referee, watch for foul play, watch for late tackles like we talked about earlier, where you're going to watch the player that just passed the ball is usually a good rule of thumb. And then once there's a breakdown, you're just going to move down and get ball in line again. So here's a couple of clips from the Premiership again. Just watch the ARs and watch their work rate. It's just constant work rate, and it's really quite awesome to watch them. So you see in that clip from the line out, that AR's, you know, basically running, sprinting up with the back line, moving back to ball in line, back to the breakdown last foot, back up to ball in line, but really putting in an effort to contribute. So you see him on the far side there, ball in line. When the camera pans out, you're going to see he's right there at the last foot for the referee, you know, working really hard. And that's really what we're looking for, especially for a high level AR or someone who's looking to really add to the team of 3. And again, another clip. This match was fantastic. It was last year in the Super 15, and the far side AR. If you can download this game, it was the Sunwolves Highlanders. Man, this AR must have put in 7 or 8 miles on the day. It was fantastic to watch him through this game. But just watch his work rate and what he does to put himself in a good position so he can contribute to the match. So you can see him up there. He's getting back there to the last foot for the referee. Ball goes away. He sort of stays around the breakdown, has a little bit of a watch. Works backward again to get ball in line so he can now adjudicate and give the centre ref some info about the deliberate knock-on. So, you know, constantly moving to be in a good position to see something. One last one here, I think another line-out clip. Same AR, and just watch his work rate. So if you look across the screen now, you can just see him up the top there. Great position. Worked really hard to get in line. So now he can adjudicate and be quite credible there on a tough call. Yeah, and again was working backwards to get ball in line.
That's a good point about credibility. For an AR positioning, you would be amazed how much more believable your decisions are to the crowd when you're in the right position.
Yeah, especially in a call like this here. So if the referee, sorry, I'll go back to this one. I think it's a really good clip here. If we look at the referee at the line out, if he just walked up the field like we see happen fairly often, he would have been in such a poor position. But he sprints up the sideline. He's working really hard at the top of the screen there to get back in line. So when that ball does get kicked towards the touchline, I mean, he's right there with it. Perfect positioning right there. Everyone buys the call. So good work for him. Last one on the line out. As far as positioning goes, here, close to the goal line, our positioning changes a little bit and our responsibilities change a little bit because we're so close to goal. Usually the centre referee is going to stay on the inside of the field, set up at the back of the line out and on the defensive side at the very beginning. You really want to stay infield and let the AR have the touch line in the 5 metre channel. And you see here they deviate from that and end up having to go upstairs where they may have been able to award the try if they had stayed in their lanes. And there you see the ball right here. I don't know if you can see my little pointer, but the ball's grounded right here in the front of the screen and the referee's on the far side over here. And if the AR had communicated that hey, I've got the short side, or I've got the 5 metre channel, stay where you are, a little bit of communication, we would have been able to adjudicate that try without having to go upstairs.
Yeah.
The scrum, a lot like the line out with the positioning at the scrum, where you will start, if the scrum's close to you, you're going to start in the channel. Now, a lot of referees would like you to be at the tunnel rather than holding the attacking team back 5, and that way you get a good vision of the scrum, like we talked about last month at our meetings. And then the far side AR will be holding the backs 5, and it's just about work rate again, getting ball in line as fast and as quick as possible. So watch the referee here. You see him working hard at the bottom of your screen to get ball in line. And again, working hard to get ball in line.
Started that spike premiership games for his new club. He has earned his injury-free run.
And then again on the far side, you see the AR working hard to be ball in line, and then back to the last foot.
Skipping through the traffic cop on the left-hand side, but the tackle from Dolman came in quickly. So,
And because of that, he was in a great position to see a deliberate knock-on, which resulted in a yellow card. So work rate, contribute and credibility. Here's another clip where we can see work rate of the far side AR there. Trying to work hard to get ball in line. See, up he comes. Right there, ball in line, in a good position to adjudicate and give the referee some good info there. So just all work rate there. And here's some clips of communication from the AR when we talk about our colour and number and things like that. So I know I've talked with some of the referees that I have AR'd for me, and at scrums I ask if it goes down, I either want you to say reset, or I need a colour and an infringement. And so here's a good example of an AR giving the centre referee something to go on.
Sam Hill preparing to make an impact. Is being given a little bit of assistance on this near side touchline by Roger Bailiff.
So could you hear that, Derek? And any thoughts on that sort of communication style from your AR at the scrum?
Yeah. It obviously they're comfortable with that. I've kind of gone with a different thing where if it's a reset, I just want them to say nothing. But it's really whatever's comfortable. I think that's okay. What you don't want to have is where the AR is saying reset and then the referee's penalizing. So whatever you want to, however you want to adjudicate that, there's no right or wrong here as long as everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point, actually. So pre-game, you're going to say, hey, look, I want you to either own that side as an AR and referee it for me. Therefore, I will wait. If it goes down on that side, I will wait for you to give me a call.
Yeah.
Or you say, I'll own it and just back me up. So.
And a note for the referee, like when you put your refereeing hat on, that level of responsibility is going to vary within the experience level of that AR.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Okay, here's another one where the AR again is communicating in.
Dolman is moving up into the fly half position, just inside. Rolling on this side. Richard Barrington.
See, for me personally, I really think that's a really smart way to communicate. You see this, the centre referee obviously has a lot of trust in his AR. He looks to the AR when the scrums goes down on that far side. The AR comes in perfectly, black. Referee penalises it, and then the AR gives clear, precise description of what happened. Really, really sharp, and what a great way to sell it to the public. I mean, there's nothing better than that to see that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one last clip here, guys and girls.
We will feel part of this, the flags and the laces and most importantly of all, how people think about it. Advantage coming from this hooked up the cheeks out.
And in this case, the referee played through the advantage, but I think it gives the referee just the right amount of information that he needs. And in this situation, the referee played through it, and no harm, no foul. But there's some good examples of our communication system there, where we're using the colour of the infringing team. We're going to repeat it 2 or 3 times, wait for the referee to acknowledge us, and then give him the description of what you saw.
I mean, in the scrum, it's okay to just give those colors at the beginning if you're or until the referee blows his whistle, like because it's such an immediate action that requires like a very quick decision from that ref. So it's not always going to be practical for you to get all the information out about what you thought if the loose head couldn't take pressure or was on an angle or slipped his bind or something like that. If you think it's going to be a penalty in a scrum, it's the best to just get that color out immediately. Then the whistle will probably go for the penalty, and then you can tell the ref after he blows the penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Because when it's all go in the center, it's hard to process, isn't it?
Yeah, in other scenarios, offside at rucks, it's good to give that information so the referee knows what it is, because he may vary his decision. I mean, in a scrum, if you're hearing color, it's only going to be on the front row or whatever. It's only going to be on that scrum, like the immediate action of what's going on in that scrum.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so what we haven't covered tonight is foul play, and we will cover that in depth in the regional meetings. We'll do some role-playing stuff. But for those of you that may not be able to make the meetings, really, when we're adjudicating foul play as an AR, we're following the same protocols. Really, it's clear and obvious. We want to make sure that we can give the referee the color and the number of the person that's infringing the law, and we want to make sure that we give clear and very precise information to the center referee. And most referees are going to lead the conversation, so it's important not to give more information than you are being asked to give, and there's several reasons for that, but basically it's the same protocol. Clear and obvious, color and number, what they did. And when the referee asks you what they did, we need it to be precise. There was a stamp to the thigh. There was a repeated stamp on the knee joint. There was a kick to the head or a punch to the face. So we want to make sure it's precise information. Usually the referee will repeat back to you what they've heard you say, and if they have deviated from the message that you're trying to give, then you can restate what you have seen. But we'll go that a lot more in our regional meetings, because we've gone pretty late tonight. I know I've kept everyone up late. So, Derek, any last words from you? Any words of wisdom?
No, I mean, to summarize all that, clear and obvious, clear in your communication. Keep it simple, really. Remember that you're there to support the referee. You're not there to referee the game. So your positioning is always going to be a little bit different. Your view is obviously going to be a little bit different, and you just got to go in with that mindset is, I'm here to be a part of this team of three. Sometimes we AR games where we're not super thrilled about it, but you got to make the most of it, and you got to support that referee and do the best that you can to make the whole group look good, not just yourself. So keep that in mind. The way that rugby is going in this country right now, a lot of us are starting to get a sense of how a team of three works more frequently, and it's only going to get better from here. You're only going to start to AR more often than you have in the past, and like we said earlier, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. It just takes time. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be frustrated. Just try to learn and take that same approach to ARing that you have to refereeing. You can have a pregame ritual. You can have a pregame plan as an AR of what you want to do and focus areas that you want to have as an AR, just like you were a referee. And if you take that approach, then you should work out pretty well.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I really appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much for sharing all your years and years of knowledge, and ARing stuff.
Like I said, sorry, just to not make those mistakes, you have to first make them. And I've made plenty of mistakes as an AR, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And remember, everyone, this webinar will be posted on our webpage. And if you can, come out to our regional meetings, bring a friend, bring some players, bring some coaches. Thanks so much for spending the evening with me and Derek. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.